Alright guys, so I finally have some time to make another Pokemon Sword and Shield video, sort of doing a roundup on all the news we've gotten over the past few weeks. Now this may or may not end up being my last Sword and Shield update before the data mine happens, depending on how much else they show and if the game ends up leaking a little bit before release like it usually does. But anyway, I was hoping to make this sooner, and I've been sick, and my voice has been in and out, so I had to keep putting it off. But anyway, I'm going to go through all the stuff that they've revealed over the last few weeks, hit all the high points, starting with the first little unique reveal that they did, where they put up like a pixelated image on the official site, and sort of played it up like, oh, Rotom, hacked the sites, and we don't know what this is, and pretty much 4chan figured out what it was within, like, a few minutes of them putting it up. But a little while later, once they actually revealed it, it did turn out to be the long-awaited Farfetch'd evolution named Sirfetch'd. So this thing is pure fighting type, so it goes from normal and flying to pure fighting, which is kind of unique. But anyway, fighting type, ability is steadfast. Now, I believe it does evolve from a Cantonian Farfetch'd. I don't think there's a Galarian Farfetch'd that this thing is going to be evolving from. There's still a possibility. I don't think they ever specifically said or showed it evolving from a normal Cantonian Farfetch'd. But I'm pretty confident it is at this point. Which, if it is, that's a good thing, because I was worried that these legacy evolutions were only going to be limited to Galarian forms, like Obstagoon. So, if we get Sirfetch'd evolving from a Cantonian Farfetch'd, that would mean that they're not restricted to the Galarian forms. So, that would be a good thing, because that was one of the things I was worried about. But anyway, design-wise, it's basically just Farfetch'd, except he's all white and a little more buff. And he's got like the smug look on his face. And then he's got a shield and a very long sword made out of his leek. So they went with the whole knight motif, like the white knight. He also has a signature move named Meteor Assault, which it sounds like it's one of those moves where it's really powerful, but you have to recharge in the next turn, so you can't move. I think it would be a little bit better if it like somehow made him flinch on the next turn instead of just normal recharging, because then that would trigger his ability. But anyway, people are really going crazy over this thing and making a lot of the memes because of, the long sword. But personally, as far as the design goes, I think it's fine. Like, I don't dislike it or anything. But I'm not as excited over it as a lot of people are. I think part of it is just a byproduct of the fact that Farfetch'd has been so useless for so long that now that he's finally getting something to maybe make him not useless, I think it makes people pretty excited. If Farfetch'd was a Gen 6 or 7 Pokemon instead of a Gen 1 Pokemon, I don't think people would be nearly as excited about this as they are. But anyway, as far as I'm concerned, it's fine. They also mentioned he is a Sword exclusive. So I hope that means the entire Farfetch'd line is Sword exclusive and not just the evolution, because that would be really stupid to do the version exclusive evolution thing. It was stupid enough when they kind of did it with the different forms of Lycanroc in Sun and Moon. Especially since you could just catch both of them in the wild anyway. So, hopefully that means the entire Farfetch'd line is Sword exclusive, and he can evolve in either game if you trade him over. So, next, they did another little unique reveal. Which this one, I didn't like this one as much as the Sirfetch'd reveal. The pixelated, hacked image was fine. This one I thought was more dumb. Basically, what they did was a 24-hour live stream of one of the locations in the game. I done forgot the name. Glenwood Tangle or something like that. One of the forest with the big like glowy mushrooms in it. Anyway, so they did like a nature cam thing basically, where there was a camera set up and it was just watching the forest, and ever so often like a random Pokemon walked by, which is a fine idea. But the problem with this was it lasted 24 hours. And after it was over, someone collected all of the actual happenings that went on during this, and I think it added up to like 7.5 minutes or something. So the vast majority of those 24 hours was literally just dead air. And then out of the few minutes of actual content that was happening, most of it was just Pokemon we already knew about, Impidimp walking around, random Pikachu strolling through, Cottony, Morlul, a bunch of old Pokemon like that. Most of which I think were already confirmed to be in the game anyway, so it's not even like, oh, they survived exit. Out of this entire 24-hour thing, we only got one actual new Pokemon reveal. And it wasn't even a whole new species of Pokemon, it was just a regional variant. And it took them 24 hours to show this thing. Then later, when they put out the proper trailer, it was like 30 seconds long. So they literally took 24 hours to show 30 seconds worth of information. And they made a bunch of idiots sit there and watch this stream for the whole 24 hours. It's incredible. I'm starting to think that this entire generation is just a test to see how far that they can push the sort of fans that have reached the point of zealotry, which apparently is a lot higher than you would expect. But I just think they're seeing how far they can push people at this point. I think they're just fucking with people. But anyway, the one new thing we did get out of this stream was a Galarian Ponyta. So this thing is pure psychic type. Abilities are Runaway and a new ability called Pastel Veil, which actually sounds pretty good because it prevents all the Pokemon on your side from being poisoned, and like if its ally is already poisoned and it's sent into battle, then it cures it. So it's an anti-poison ability. Design wise, basically this thing is literally just My Little Ponyta. They turned it into a My Little Pony character. It's shorter than regular Ponyta. It's got the purple and green sort of cotton candy looking mane and tail, which glows, by the way, which actually looks pretty cool. They said that the little lower explanation for why it changed forms, it said it was due to exposure from overflowing life energy of the forest. So I guess just living in this forest caused it to change. It does already have the little horn on its head, unlike regular Ponyta, who doesn't get a horn until it evolves into Rapidash. So it looks like they're leaning more heavily into the unicorn elements for the Galarian versions. Now, design-wise, I actually like it. It's probably my favorite of the Galarian forms they've shown so far, which they only showed like 4, so it's not really a lot of competition at this point. But I do like its design, even if it is straight out of My Little Pony. I think it looks cool when the mane and fur stuff glows. I'm anxious to see what Galarian Rapidash looks like. They haven't showed it yet. I could see maybe Rapidash getting another evolution, sort of like an Obstagoon situation, where it goes Galarian Ponyta, Galarian Rapidash, and then it evolves again and maybe like gets wings or something. I could see them going that route. So, as far as the reveal itself, I think it was fine. I just think that it was really stupid to drag it out over 24 hours in a boring, poorly constructed live stream. I know people try to defend it with, oh, it's a nature cam, it's supposed to be boring. Well, it's still boring, okay? That doesn't make up for it. But anyway. So then, moving on to the next thing, last week we got an actual proper trailer where they showed 5 new Gigantamax forms. Well, so these are the first Gigantamax forms they've talked about since the initial Gigantamax reveal back a few months ago. And all 5 of these are forms for Kanto Pokemon, so the Kanto pandering is in full effect already. But I think some people are overreacting to it a little bit. No, I don't believe that the Gigantamax forms are going to be exclusive to just Gen 1 and 8 Pokemon. I could be wrong, but I think they'll be more spread out. They're just pushing the Kanto ones because they're more recognizable, like always. But anyway, they showed the 5 new forms, first of which was one pretty much everyone was expecting at this point due to Leon. Gigantamax Charizard. So I'm sure Leon will end up using this since Charizard is his main Pokemon, and you know, they're not going to give the champion of the new region an old Pokemon that's not going to get a new form. So I'm sure he'll end up using this as his ace. Design-wise, it's pretty much keeps the main body shape of a regular Charizard. Its stomach turns white and gets like a little yellow design on it. It's got fire like coming out of the little horns on its head, and the flame on its tail is bigger. The little Dynamax, Gigantamax poop clouds are flowing around its tail instead of around its head too. But then the like big feature of it is its wings are actually entirely made of fire. Which design wise, I think this looks really cool. I like the design. I just have 2 problems with it. One, I wish the wings were a little bit bigger. They're just a tad on the small side where it looks like they couldn't really hold him up when he was flying. So I wish they made the wings slightly bigger. And my main issue with it is I wish that it was just another Mega instead of a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade balloon. Because I've really soured on this whole Dynamax, Gigantamax thing. If you go back to my earlier videos before they announced the Dex cuts, I was slightly more positive about it, saying that, you know, it's not the coolest thing they could come up with just the Pokemon getting bigger, but mechanically I thought it could still be interesting. And at the time I was thinking that way because, like, even if Dynamax and Gigantamax ended up being like totally crap, I could still just not use that and fall back on Megas and Z moves. But then they announced that Megas and Z moves were gone. So that sort of dried up all my goodwill for this new mechanic, and it's just sort of souring on me more and more. So I don't like that it's a giant, you know, turd cloud parade balloon. It should have just been Mega Charizard Z, honestly, and been like a normal size. But the design itself is fine, and my favorite of the Gigantamaxes they have shown. Mainly because most of the other ones suck. But anyway, its G-Max move is called G-Max Wildfire, which is what all its fire type moves become. And this move deals damage, and on top of that, it also deals additional damage each turn for 4 turns to any Pokemon that's not fire type. So it's kind of like burn damage, but without actually burning them, so you could still burn them on top of that or inflict them with another status condition or whatever. So that's its G-Max move. Moving on to the next is Gigantamax Butterfree, which this one basically is just straight up Mothra. They turned Butterfree into Mothra, which is fine. You know, we've got other kaiju sort of designs going with the Gigantamax thing. It was clear that that was part of their inspiration for this. It's got the big giants, like white and green wings. Design-wise, I don't think it looks bad. It's just weird to me that they made Butterfree into Mothra instead of one of the multiple moth Pokemon they already have. I know a lot of people were wanting Volcarona to get the Mothra treatment, since Volcarona is one of the more popular Gen 5 Pokemon, and Gen 5 doesn't really get as much. But you had Volcarona, you had Mothium. Even if you wanted to do the Gen 1 pandering, you had Venomoth that you could use. It's just Butterfree seems like an odd choice to me. And again, it probably should have just been a Mega, since Beedrill got a Mega and Butterfree didn't, and they're kind of counterparts. But anyway, its bug type moves become Gmax Befuddle, which is a stupid name for a move. But anyway, it deals damage, and it spreads the scales on its wings, and those can either inflict poison, paralysis, or sleep on your opponents. So I guess it's just random, whichever one it happens to inflict. So then the next three are Gigantamax that aren't in the game naturally. You have to go through some special means to get them. The first of which is Gigantamax Pikachu. Which design, it's literally just the old school fat Pikachu from Gen 1. That's literally all it is. It's Pikachu but fat. And his tail got longer and is like lit up with electricity. That's all it is. And people are really excited by this for some reason. Like, fat Pikachu's fine, but it's not that exciting, people. I don't know where people are getting so insane over this. But anyway, they said that the only way to get Gigantamax Pikachu is to have save data from Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. Which I really don't like, because that means even if you were getting these games and you did want Fat Pikachu, you gotta buy the other turd of a game that they pinched out last year in order to even get it. So I think that's pretty shitty. I think that might be a way to try to boost sales for the Let's Go games, considering that they had a strong opening, but they didn't have very good legs as far as continued sales go. So I think they're trying to get another little sales bump for them and maybe move another 1,000,000 copies or so. That really wouldn't surprise me. But anyway, its electric moves become Gmax Volt Crash, which deals damage and paralyzes all your opponents. It's a pretty basic move. I don't really have much else to say about this. It's Fat Pikachu. I mean, what do you want from me? It is what it is. So then, of course, since Pikachu got one, we also have to give one to Eevee. So we got Gigantamax Eevee. And again, just like Pikachu, you have to have the data from Let's Go Eevee on your system in order to obtain this one. Now, this one, I hate this one a lot. Mainly because it's totally pointless and stupid, even more so than the Fat Pikachu. This design, it's literally just Eevee, but with the fur around his neck being, like, giant. So he's got, like, floofier neck fur. That's all they did. That is such a lazy, uninspired design. It's so dumb. And these are the main selling points of your game that you're pushing. This is the stuff that you're showing before release to get people hyped. Like, what are you doing? This, ugh. So I do not care for this design. They said that, like, it gets really playful when you Gigantamax it, so it sometimes, like, accidentally crushes people to death. Which just seems impractical. Like, why would you Gigantamax anything to play with it? That doesn't... Anyway. So, its Gmax move is called Gmax Cuddle, which normal type moves become this, where it deals damage and it infatuates any opponent that's of the opposite gender. So I guess the idea is, like, the fur is, like, so adorable it makes everyone fall in love with it. It makes me hate it, so I guess it has the opposite effect. But anyway, I hate that one more than the other ones. It's one of my least favorite Gigantamax designs, just because it's so dumb. They could have done so much with Eevee's design, and this is the best they could come up with, was just making its neck fur fatter. So I think that's really stupid. But anyway, lastly, this one is actually an event exclusive one, at least for now. We got Gigantamax Meowth, which again is not surprising because that's another thing from the Ben Affleck leak, like several other things from this. And pretty much exactly like the leak said, it's literally just Meowth as Long Cat. Because, referencing a meme from 2006 is more important than getting all the Pokemon in your game, apparently. So it's just Meowth with his body stretched out, and like his eyes are glowing, and I think he has like a kanji on his coin or whatever. It is event exclusive, so you gotta download the Meowth that can Gigantamax between launch day and January 15th of next year. Its normal type attacks become G-Max Gold Rush, which deals damage, confuses all your opponents, and also scatters coins around, so it boosts your money at the end of the battle. So same effect as Payday, basically. I don't like this design either. I don't care about the long cat meme, and that's all this is, so it's just stupid. They also mentioned that the Pikachu EV and Meowth variants that can Gigantamax also can't evolve. So, even if you did get these to use them, unless they have massively buff stats for some reason, which I don't think they will, for most of the game, you're going to end up with an underpowered, just normal Pikachu EV or Meowth, since the Gigantamax can only happen at certain locations. So, it doesn't really seem like it's that much worth it to even put them on your team, but whatever, there they are. So that was all the new designs they showed. I was pretty unimpressed by all this, honestly. Like, Galarian Ponyta's okay, and Gigantamax Charizard would be cool if he was a Mega. But he's not, so none of this really changed my tune much on these games. So besides that, a lot of the gaming sites are getting their first impressions and releasing interviews and hands-on details and stuff about the games. So through that, we got a lot of just general information and details about various aspects of Sword and Shield. So I'm going to hit the high points running through this real fast. The first thing is something that's actually pretty positive. Potentially is. We don't really know for sure yet. They hinted at some sort of new feature, and they were very vague about the whole thing. So we don't really know for sure what they were talking about. But pretty much everyone assumed that they were referencing some kind of mechanic in the game that would let you change your Pokemon's nature. Which, assuming these assumptions are correct, I think that'd be really cool. My video I made last year talking about some of the things I want to see in Gen 8, a nature-changing item or mechanic was one of the things that I mentioned I did want to see. But it was one of the ones that I thought was very unlikely to actually happen. So if it turns out that people are right about this and it is some sort of way to change natures, I think that'd be really cool. Hopefully it's not something overly annoying that would be a massive pain in the ass to do. But we don't have any details about this, and it could be referencing something totally different and people are just wrong. So we kind of got to wait and see. But if it turns out to be what people think it is, I think that'd be really cool. So we got that. They did mention that the name rater, the move deleter, and the move reminder, instead of being like in some random location in the game, now every Pokemon Center is going to have one of those in it. So that's a nice quality of life improvement. It makes things a lot easier. You don't have to, get on Bulbapedia and look up where the move relearner is every time you want to remember an old move or something. I still fail to see what the point of even having a move deleter is when you don't have HMs anymore. But whatever. So all those are in the Pokemon Center now. They also mentioned that you no longer need to use heart scales to relearn moves. I don't know if that means heart scales are just going to be totally useless now, because that's pretty much the only use they had before, other than selling them for money. So they might just become another, sell for money item. Or hell, they might just remove heart scales from the game entirely. They're removing every fucking thing else, so why not? They did talk about autosave, which people had speculated about before. There is an autosave function in the game, but it can be turned off. Which, that's the main thing people were worried about, because like if they wanted to reset for natures or whatever, or shiny or whatever they're doing. So, the autosave can be turned off, which I'm glad. I don't like autosave in games in general. I prefer to have control over it myself. So, if you want to cut the autosave off and just stick to manual save, you have that option. On the other hand, they did confirm that the EXP share cannot be turned off. And it's no longer an item, it's just basically baked into the game in and of itself. So, all the Pokemon in your party are going to gain EXP, no matter what. I think it is scaled to where the ones that participate in battle do get more than the ones that don't. But your entire team's going to be earning EXP. So, unless they changed how the EVs work, then EV training might end up being a mess in these games. We don't really know how that's going to go. And it looks like the only way that if you do want to just raise one Pokemon at a time, the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you only have one Pokemon on your team at a time. Which is a god-awful way to do it. Now, they did mention that, at least in the wild area, you're going to be able to access your PC. So it sounds like you can deposit and withdraw Pokemon out in the wild area without having to go back to town or whatever every time you want to do it. So maybe that would make training a little bit easier. If you only wanted to raise like one at a time, you could just swap them out a little bit faster. But it's just unnecessarily complicated. There's no reason to not just leave the option in. You've had it for the last, 2 gens now? Just have the option there. If people want it on, they can have it on. If people want it off, they can have it off. That way, everybody's happy. Removing an option is never a good thing. Forcing people to play one way instead of another is not going to win over anyone. So, I just don't see the point in it. Speaking of the wild area, they also mentioned that some of the overworld encounters in the wild area, the Pokemon will have like a yellow aura around them. And this aura represents that they have a few max IVs or could potentially have some egg moves. Now, people are making assumptions. Again, people need to stop making so many assumptions. It's going to end up biting them in the ass. They're assuming this might mean some kind of return of the Dex Nav. Since, that also allowed you to get max IVs and egg moves. And I think they also mentioned that there's, in the menu, or there's some kind of screen where you can see, like, all the Pokemon that are on the route that you're on. So there's hints that there's some sort of system similar to how Dex Nav worked. Now, we don't know for sure. It could be something totally different. If we do get some sort of variant of Dex Nav that at least largely works like it did before, I'll be really happy about that. I love the Dex Nav from Oris. That's one of the things, again, that I mentioned in my video that I hope will return for Gen 8. So if there is some sort of Dex Nav variant in this game that you can use to chain Pokemon together and catch Pokemon that way, I'd be really excited about it. But I don't think we have nearly enough information right now to be jumping to any conclusions like that. So, I'm sort of in the camp where I'll believe it when I see it. Anyway, the last thing, I had to bring this up. I know it's kind of old news at this point, but I had to bring it up. because I think it's really funny. So this came specifically from the Game Informer hands-on, which, people listening to Game Informer is their first mistake right there. But anyway, so they did an interview with Masuda and Omori, and it come out during this interview that there was going to be 18 gyms in the Galar region. And people absolutely lost their minds over this. They're like, oh my god, these games are going to be so full of content. There's 18 different gyms you can battle. And they said that there's going to be like 8 major league and the rest were minor league. So like 8 normal ones, and then the minor league ones would work different or something. So people were speculating what that meant and what you're going to be able to do. And like, oh, these games are going to be so great. They're going to be so full of content. It's good that they cut the decks. It's totally worth it because we're getting 18 gyms. This is what a bunch of morons told me. And not 2 days later, Game Informer had to issue a statement saying that they got a clarification from the Pokemon Company saying that there are, in fact, not 18 gyms in the game. There's just 8 like normal. And the 18 gyms thing is just something that's in the lore of the games. So basically, there's 18 gyms to explain why some of the gyms are different within Sword and Shield. Because of the 18, different ones like rotate into the major league each year, I guess. So, like in Sword, I think it's Sword, we have the fighting type gym, and then in Shield we have the ghost type gym. So, to explain why they're different, it's because in the story of Sword, the fighting type gym is the one that rotated into the major league that year. So, in the story of Sword, the ghost gym still exists. It's just not accessible in any way. So the only gyms you can actually go to and do anything will be the 8 major league ones. It's just that the 8 major league ones are different between games. And the 18 gyms thing is to explain why they're different. So people got so excited for this, and they got such a big dick over this. And the whole thing turned out to be a miscommunication. And I just thought that was funny. Because this whole story was just like a microcosm of the entire hype season for these games. Where they say something, or they show something, and it sounds good, and it looks good, and you think, oh, this is going to be great. And then immediately it gets a giant turd dropped on it. And it turns out to be not as good as people thought it was. The whole 18 Gyms episode just perfectly encapsulated this entire thing. So, I thought it was hilarious. But anyway, I think that's all the important things we've gotten over the last several weeks. Again, I know I sound like a broken record saying this over and over, but nothing about this has changed my position. I still am not getting the games at launch. I'm still leaning more and more towards not even bothering getting them at all. At first I was thinking like, I always get the Pokemon games. Except Let's Go. So, I was thinking like, it's a new region, it's a bunch of new Pokemon, it's a new story. I'm not happy with the way they're doing things, so maybe I'll get it used, a few months later or whatever. To at least be able to experience the story and experience the games. My desire to even experience it at all is just getting smaller and smaller over time. I just don't care. Like, I can't make myself care about any of this. Nothing seems appealing to me. They're taking away so much. They took away the National Dex. They took away Mega Evolutions. They took away Z moves. They took away the ability to cut EXP share off. They might have took away the Elite Four. They are changing so much, and they're replacing it with a bunch of crap that I don't really care about. And people still, we're 2 weeks out from release, people are still swearing up and down. There's so much content, they're just not showing any of it. There's all this great stuff, they're just not showing any of it. Okay, man, whatever you say. Now, they did confirm that they are intentionally not showing as many new Pokemon. Which, if you couldn't figure that out for yourself at this point, I don't know what to tell you. We're 2 weeks out from release, and they've only showed like 20 new Pokemon. So even if it's a smaller dex like we've had in Gen 6 and 7, they've still only showed like, what, maybe 20-25% of the new Pokemon anyway. So that was pretty clear, regardless of how many new Pokemon there ends up being. And no, I still don't believe that there's going to be over 100. Not with regional variants and Gigantamax artificially increasing the numbers. But people keep saying that, there's all this stuff, they're just not showing any of it. If, by some chance, that is true, that there is a chance. It could be the case. I don't think it is, but it could be. Can we at least all agree that it would be massively stupid for the Pokemon company, to drop a bomb, like removing the National Dex, removing Pokemon entirely from the games, and then proceed to keep all the good things about the game secret to surprise people when they actually start playing? Once you drop the Dexit bomb, you're in a position where you have to win people back at that point. Holding back information is not the strategy you need to be going with right now. And also, I know a lot of people are still pushing the whole, Game Freak is lazy idea. And I don't agree with that. I've talked about before. I don't think it's laziness. I think it's stubbornness. And maybe a touch of greed in there. But anyway, I don't agree with that idea or that narrative. But, a lot of people complained about... excuse me. A lot of people complained in Gen 6 and 7 about how they revealed too much pre-release of the games, which they did show a lot. But I think that the fact that Game Freak, they say like, oh, we're listening to the fans and not revealing as much for Sword and Shield. I think the fact that the only time they listen to the fans is when it results in them doing less work doesn't really help that conception that Game Freak is lazy. Now, again, I don't think that's the case, but that's how people are going to interpret it. But anyway, like I said, my position remains the same. I'm leaning more and more towards not getting the games, and we're this close to release, and nothing they've shown has really made me budge from that view. So, anyway, I guess that's all I got to say. So, lots of luck to you and yours.